Right. Everyone okay with the agenda? Persons to be heard related to the agenda. John Mergus.
My name is John Mergus. I'm representing myself, and I want to just sincerely thank everybody that's involved in this project. The Murph Engineering folks and the Petersburg Borough. The Pappy's Landing is due for good consideration. I do live at near Pappy's Landing, and I don't use the facility anymore. I'm getting a little too old, but I watch all the commerce that takes place there. It's impressive. Now, there's three vital things to keep in mind for the Pappy's facility. And it's a deep water port. It's very well protected from the weather, and it has minimal tidal currents. You put all this together and it really makes it an ideal place for public funding from all the different programs that are available. The other aspects where I think it's really practical to move it forward and obtain public funding is all these funding agencies use the same similar criteria, and it includes safety, benefit cost. The facility needs repair. It's definitely in disrepair right now. It has low environmental risk. It supports local business, supports area communities. And I think that's one of the most important things, is that it will really support all the communities in northern Prince of Wales Island, Wrangell, and it's the benefits of the ease of transportation out of there are very high. I'm sorry. I'm just going to set this out. Even though this is a conceptual project, you do need to address the safety control, the speed control on the Pappy's Landing Road. It's very well used by pedestrians and children, animals, and so keep in mind that, even though it is strictly conceptual. But anyway, that's pretty much all I have to say. It's truly and really obviously enhances transportation in many ways, and it would take me an hour to list all of them. But again, thank you for all the work that everybody's put into this project so far. That's all I got.
Dave Kensinger, representing myself. I've used Pappy's probably more than just about anybody in this room has. I've lived out in Keene Channel and Duncan Canal since 1982. So I've seen the evolution of Pappy's, and currently me and Kevin Smalek, we're the only people that really take care of it. It has had absolutely no maintenance from the state for years. They did replace the gangway going out to the ramp that goes down to the dock. But the dock is in horrible disrepair. Matter of fact, a couple times this winter, I thought it was a goner. It jumps the track. It requires at least 2 people out there and about 3 hours of work, jacking up the transfer bridge, getting it back into place. The thing needs snowblowing constantly now because the flotation's gone off of it. I encourage you to go out there and take a look at it. It's marginal whether it's even safe or not to be used. So it definitely needs to be replaced. And what I've seen that's occurred over the years out there is there's a lot more people living out the road. There's a lot more people that live on remote property. As a matter of fact, the state sold 153 lots in their various land lotteries they've had out there. The universities had a sale where they sold, I believe, 20 lots. And there's also the potential for a lot more land development out there, as the university owns extensive land holdings on the Metcalf side of Wrangell Narrows. So it's an important access point for people like me that use it to come in and come and go. Like today, I came in this morning, I tied my boat up, and with luck, I'll be able to go back this evening. But I think the thing that's really changed is the amount of use. And what I see the amount of use out there is astounding certain times of the year. And it's not people that live in the Pappy's area. Very few people in the Pappy's area tie a boat up there and leave it. Most of the people that seem to be tying boats up there and leaving them now are from town. And the other problem we also have out there is it's a vehicle dumping point in the parking lot out there. I counted this morning 18 vehicles that haven't moved for over 6 months. And some of them haven't moved for well over a year. And so what needs to be done out there is really simple. First, and the borough has been making steps to do that, is to deal with the property ownership issue out there. Who owns what and what? It's been very confusing. Fortunately, mental health, I believe, is out of the fray. So it's basically DNR and DOT talking amongst themselves, which is a rather painful and laborious and doesn't happen very often type of process, at least from what I'm reading between the lines. So that's the first step. The second step is deciding what needs to be done. I think it's a good plan. It's more money than I would have liked to see. And I think maybe you guys can talk about that, but on the flip side of that, theoretically, DOT will pay for half of whatever this will cost. And then we'll have to find grant money through any of the number of numerous programs that are out there for the other half of it. I don't know exactly how that's going to all work out, but this facility needs to be replaced. Go out there in a couple weeks and just look at the use out there. And the majority of the use now is not so much the dock, it's the ramp. The ramp is constantly used. And in the summertime, it's perhaps as busy as any of the ramps are here in town. And the majority of that use is from people that live inside the town here. So it's not us people out there using this facility and nobody from town using it, because it has as heavy of use from people that live in Petersburg, the old service area 1 or whatever you want to call it, and the people that live out the road. The other thing that's happened since I've lived out there is the development of all the lodges out there. There's 3 of them that are right across from the dock, and they use it extensively in the summertime. I mean, it's amazing how many people go back and forth on that. And then when the dock was in better repair, Breakwater used to bring people in from, a lot of times instead of dropping them off at Banana Point, they'd bring them all the way into Pappy's and drop them off. So it's been used for a lot of things that I don't think a lot of people in town are aware of. So it's a very important piece for the transportation infrastructure of the area. And it's probably about 20 years late, or probably 20 years too late to dealing with it, but I'm glad we're taking a look at it now. Thanks.
Dave, I had a question.
Yeah.
I don't get out of town during the summer just because of work, and you mentioned the lodges. Where do the lodges use the ramp? Do they use the gangway?
Well, they use, it depends upon the lodge. They all use the ramp to back like a trailer down. They go up to the airport, pick their clients up, put all their luggage in like either a bus or a trailer. They back down, they unload all that. That's how they supply themselves, usually depending upon which lodge. One of them even brings a fuel barge over, and has a fuel truck come out there to fill up all their fuel. So it's pretty vital for them. I mean, I don't see how they'd be able to operate without it. Actually, we have several of us out there have spent quite a bit of money and time trying to maintain it over the years. But it just receives so much wear, and it's old, and it's the type of thing that public money, I think, needs to be thrown at. The other thing, one of the lodges, they have a tendency to use the ramp a lot to tie up their skiffs. They might not be there overnight or anything, but they're there briefly. So there is a substantial amount of use from the lodges. Town use, mainly people going out there. When I first moved to town, people had heavy fiberglass boats. They didn't have the nice fancy aluminum cruisers they have now that are a lot lighter and easier to trailer. So a lot of people, all that I can think is, there's a ton of people that go out and they launch their boats out there. So a lot shorter distance to go if you're going out, out to Sumner or out to Duncan. So there's a lot more boat traffic use. In the wintertime, yeah, the ramp gets used quite a bit by the locals out there. Surprisingly, when king fishing is good in the wintertime out there, there's a whole fleet of guys that go out there every day and they put their skiffs in the water and go out and sit in miserable weather in an open skiff and then come back. They've been doing that for years. So it's a surprising amount of use. I have a picture of one particular busy day where there was 85 vehicles parked out there in boat trailers. So, I mean, it is used a lot. And although a problem is probably about 18 of those weren't working, but it's a heavy use area. So, yeah, thanks.
Anyone unrelated to the agenda? No. All right, is Glow online somewhere? Want to do your report, Glow?
Yep, I'm here. I don't know that, if anybody has any questions, there's really not a lot there to explain. We're just keeping on, keeping on.
Here and see if anybody has a question. Oh, yeah, no problem.
My name is Brandon Allison. I just bought Majestic Eagle Lodge out there. I did move here permanently. I live out of Pappy's now, but the dock out there is kind of pivotal to our lifestyle out there. We use it all the time, obviously. And I'm not even opposed. Like I said, I missed the first part, so I'm not sure exactly what was said. But I think it would be a great idea to fix that area up, and even I'd be open to the option of like us as the lodges or whoever over there, paying a fee to be able to use that and upkeep the property over there, for storing cars that are over there. We're using the ramp or redoing a dock. It's pivotal to our lifestyle out there for sure. But I don't think that everything has to be done for free out there either. I would definitely be open to having like a fee associated with using them. Just like launching your boat here or anything like that, there's a fee associated with that. And I kind of think that would be a good idea out there.
Anyone else that we missed want to speak? Okay, I guess any questions for Glow on our harbor master report? All right. I don't think we have any unfinished business and new business. We have the conceptual design of Pappy's. My understanding is it was just kind of a slightly formalized idea of what could be done there, and then it was given to the harbor department to figure out what it would cost to operate that. And do you want to take over, Glow? Tell us how this
Sure.
came about, why it's in front of us, and what we're
Yeah, maybe back up a little bit. This project is, has been circulated. We've been talking on it. We've been ruminating on it since the state decided they wanted to get out of the harbor business and offered this as one of 3 outside service area 1 facilities to the borough to take over and move forward and prosper. So Kupernoff, Entrance Island, and then Pappy's Landing. So Pappy's Landing is a vital part. Can't disagree with anything that anybody said of the waterfront here within the borough. And knowing that kind of what's been happening in the federal side, earmarks are back, things are occurring above us with different departments, that maybe there'll be some funding come available. So Steve approached the assembly. The assembly said, yeah, let's throw some money at it. Let's get talking about having some conceptual drawings done up that we can offer to the community to start picking apart and talking about. So Alan, Murph and I sat down, and this is what we came up with, and nobody's married to any of it. It's just a starting point. And it's of course, from my perspective as a harbor master, what I see the needs are outside of the harbor proper. So that's kind of what we've come up with, knowing that parking is a big issue, knowing that, you know, there are a lot of times where there's way more vehicles than there are spaces, you know, with trailers, vehicles and trailers to support comings and goings of a busy narrows there. So this is what we came up with. And then Steve would like to move it forward with the assembly and with the community on pushing this project somewhere on our conceptual or on our capital improvement project list. And so, you know, I don't know if I don't know what the assembly, other than this is a good public venue for people to come out and do everything from supporting the project to actually talking about aspects of the project. So that being said, you know, the harbor is not in a position to manage it. Right now, we're not, you know, I don't know where we'll come up with the money, if there's a match needed, all those kind of things, which, you know, if I suppose if we get awarded a bunch of money, then maybe we can have those conversations, or this is a great starting point. I'm a big advocate of harbor projects. I love to design and I love to go out and seek money. But it's kind of, it's not under my harbor master's hat right at the moment. So kind of take it where you want to go. If you want to walk through it, Bob, or if you want Alan, he's there to kind of explain the steps we went through.
You guys
It's
feel
really,
like-
it's really all I have.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Do you want to walk us through a little bit on the screen there? Who's got control of the screen? Is that you, Becky? Okay.
Essentially recapping what everybody says, I think we all agree that what's out there has reached its useful life. What the whole idea behind this is it can be phased in different projects, each one of these. And of course, the main part of the project would be this area here. Thought was to sort of replace in kind and obviously improve the parking to the area. And the original, this is almost fits the same footprint. The original dock that's out there right now is sitting right back here, and it goes dry at 0 tide. Drops off fairly good. And the beauty of moving it out a little bit more is this area seems to self-dredge itself. I don't believe you have to worry about future costs of dredging the bureaucracy of that. For the existing is a float. This is a option. You could put a parallel float out here. And the existing ramp, the U.S. Forest Service has a lease on it for a log transfer site. Whether another log will ever go across that or not, it's my feeling that they're wanting to hold on to that as a log transfer site. So this, at the moment, in my mind, is sort of off the table for developing. So this is the property line right here that the state owns and I believe would be agreeable to turning over to the city. This is the zero tide line roughly, comes across here. And instead of dredging this area out, which would require, the thought was that would always be filling up on maintenance. So let's just fill that area in, use that for parking, then put a shorter trestle and ramp coming out, load out here. Dredge it, but there's a lot of money, a lot of bureaucracy there. So we put in through this end, it can be built at any time through a new concrete ramp. Obviously you've got this one, it's a little shallower. This would be a little steeper to make it easier for, so you don't put your back axle in salt water too much there. Concrete ramp, that could be left, that could also be phased in too. Improve the existing parking area. That would go along with this first phase. These two areas up here, the city, the borough owns these parcels, and these were just put in as parking. Here's a nice gym to put in a maintenance building and stuff. I would assume, like I say, these could be phased in. The city just happened to own those parcels, so and parking's always a big concern. The rest of this is private, all around there. So that is essentially it in a nutshell. If we could go to the last page, we've got going, very last page. Okay. This is not the best picture in the world, but this is what's existing right now. This long wood trestle going out. This picture was taken at probably a -1, it looks like. This, because it goes dry right here. So you can see if we moved out just a little bit more, we've got good water to put the float in. This is 100 foot. Down a little bit, please. These are just some rough, the total for this whole package is about 6.4 million. Broken apart, the existing lot, to do this portion, came out to about 4.4 million. That bottom phase, the ramp, the new boat ramp, and everything. These existing parking areas are about $500,000 and 1 million to do those. And areas here would be added on, but this portion fixed down here, I would think would be the first one to go. So the whole package is 6.4 is roughly what we came up with for numbers. And if you go back to about page, this page right here. So we'll put this new fill in. We'll have a short approach dock, a longer ramp, an 80-foot ramp going down, and then this is the float, gangway float, and this would be the new dock right here. So that's what you'd be looking at. Roughly looking, this is about zero tide right here. So you would have about at zero tide, you'd have about probably between 6 to 10 feet out in this area underneath there. And once again, I believe that over time, it sort of self dredges and keeps clean. So that would be the beauty of coming out here instead of trying to dredge any of that area there. Okay, go up one, next page. Yeah, so we got, this is the overall view. We fill this area in, put a ramp down, put the float out here. And this could be optional, but it'd be just another concrete plank ramp, which is standard for around here. And then we'd have a ramp float going down the side of it. And this would be a concrete block, you know, the big block, concrete block wall right there. And that's about it for the overall project. So any questions or thoughts?
So the harbor board first, any questions from you guys? Alan?
Yeah, so initially, my question was, why didn't we, you know, do a double ramp? But I understand now that that's right at the line, basically, that we
Yeah.
own.
Yeah.
And essentially, the floats are just like we have down here. They float in a high
Yeah,
tide.
pretty much duplicate of what all that is. So once again, the project could be phased in. You could kick that out for the moment, that could go in later, but the main project would just be this fill. That's roughly just $1 million doesn't buy much anymore. So.
Is there lighting in there?
Yeah, we got, it shows on another one. We got street lighting in there. And we've got, yeah. And there's a concrete vault restroom there too.
I have questions kind of about the log transfer ramp that's there. So you kind of spoke to that in your opinion. The Forest Service wants to sort of hang on to it for that use, but who knows when it's ever gonna
Yeah,
actually be used for that.
It's my opinion that it would take some political leverage to have them give up the right to that log transfer site there. But obviously it's useful to most folks on right now.
Right,
So it's just that here's the property line. We can't at the moment.
In the past, they wouldn't even talk to us.
Yeah, and I suspect it hadn't changed much.
No.
So essentially, this piece right here is the one that we can develop. And these upland parking lots right here. And of course, we can, here's the existing footprint. That's right there.
You kind of wonder whether the Forest Service or USDA would, might want to improve that ramp for some reason. I mean, there appears to be a lot of money available for recreation and so on. This is kind of a recreation type. Our project is kind of a recreation type project, but maybe pointing out to them, look, when was the last time a log actually went past that? You wonder whether that could, maybe like plant the seed.
Yes. But at the moment, we were just looking at what could be done without opening.
Involving them.
Yeah. Because that could always happen future date, something more going.
Technically, that they gotta cross city to get to their ramp. You can see where I mean, if the city owns all that,
We don't own that,
No, this
that
is,
part yet.
DNR
oh, okay.
owns this.
I'll shut my mouth.
Sorry.
So, but part of this deal would be we're sort of taking over that DNR portion, right? Or upon improving it, sort of, all of a sudden it becomes ours, or how is
Yeah.
that supposed to work?
If we could go to the last page again,
Steve?
please.
Yeah, maybe. Steve.
I show, we got the ownership on there.
And Steve has something,
Oh,
I think, to
come on
offer.
down. This way a little bit. Take it. Bring this down some. Oh, yep, just a little, okay. So here's the land ownership, here's the Pappy Road coming in, this is exactly what's there right now. Here's the existing ramp or trestle going out. So the borough's got 1, 2, 3. DNR owns this piece right here. And DNR, well, DOT owns it. DOT owns the road coming in. So we'd be working with DNR on improving this. Since that's already an existing use, I don't think it would be trouble with them. And DOT's already wanting to. So that piece.
I'll get to you in a second, Raleigh, but Steve, what did you have?
And if I could, through the chair, can add some clarity. Forest Service is in talks right now to be out of that ramp and not have any interest in it going forward. Now, that's very tentative. We've had initial conversations with them, and so far, so good. Alan's correct about the ownership piece. It's one of the kind of issues we have with moving forward quickly. DNR owns the land, the tidelands under the dock and the tidelands itself. And they charge a lease, but because it's DOT, the lease is, $1 a year thing. If we took ownership of the dock, we'd suddenly get a full-blown DNR lease payment we would have to make.
So DNR,
Owns the water underneath the dock. So they're more than happy to lease it to us if we have the dock, but that's where the borough's perspective is coming in, is we want this resolved before taking ownership of the dock. We want DOT and DNR to work together and get this resolved and say, give us the land, so the borough would own the tidelands and all of that property that DNR has down there. Just got back from a conversation with them. It's gonna be tough. DOT is anxious to make this happen. DNR doesn't want to do anything other than their current rules. So it's likely gonna go a little higher up to the governor's office, and we'll see what we can get done. I'm just kind of hitting all this, Dave mentioned the small harbor grant program. That is definitely an option. There's also some federal funding that'll be coming in the next 2 to 5 years that has carve outs for rural communities when it comes to harbor projects just like this. They haven't even developed the grant out. So we don't know for sure yet, but it's one of the reasons why it was important to get this rolling, to have conceptual drawings and get the community buy-in, because if the feds come out with money, you have to move pretty quick if you want to get it, and you have to be able to show, here's what we want to do with the money. So again, I think I hit everything. So we're making headway on the ramp. DNR is still a problem as far as, it took us about 10 or 12 years to get Scow Bay. We really don't want that to be the case in Pappy's. And the borough's perspective really is, we want ownership of all of it before we take the dock and then start having to pay a lease bill to DNR. And a recent add-on to this is DOT wants to give us Pappy's Road. They want to get out of that. Well, we're not so sure we're interested in that as from a borough's perspective. They're willing to fix the road and everything, but then after that, we would be responsible for all the maintenance. That's a conversation the assembly hasn't even had yet. And we don't know if that's going to slow this project down, or if it's just going to be viewed as something separate. One of the problems is the way our current borough charter reads, We can do harbors and ports outside of service area one. We can't do roads. So unless a service area is formed, we could not take on the ownership of that road and the maintenance of that road. So if they make that a requirement to get the dock, then we're kind of stuck again. Anyway, that's all information just gathered in the last couple of weeks, actually. So. Yes, sir. Anyway, thank you, Bob, for letting me interject.
Probably you've been waiting patiently.
I guess a question I have on, the only thing I was looking at on the ramp, conceptual drawing of the ramp.
Could he go to the mic so it's recorded?
It's recorded.
He's on his way.
My name's Raleigh Cook. And I just did, on a conceptual drawing, if you can come down to the, where it shows the dock and the ramp beside it, this floating ramp. If that could be moved to the other side so you can actually use both sides of it, like the one down here that we have in the city. Putting it at the property line and the concrete planks over to the other side was my only thought looking at it. So you can actually use both sides of it. And that you're not in the way as soon as you tie up your boat, you can get it out of the way and then get your trailer out of the way. That was
That's a good idea.
my only thought on that part.
Okay. That's a good idea.
And Lord knows what can happen if we can get the rest of it. That's all I.
Make note of that.
What I've thinking about, it's kind of like building a house. There's all kinds of ways to build a house, and this is a good start, but I'm sure the public has all kinds of ideas, and we haven't even started on that process yet. But I think it's a great idea of one vision of what could happen there. One thing I was wondering about is these, I guess you call it the ramp float. What if, has anyone ever done a system based entirely on the ramp float and not having the traditional ramp floats go out there and connect a matrix of floats?
Oh,
The boat launch ramp float.
good. I'm just thinking it's sort of a congested area right there. Worth looking at and thinking about. I've not seen that, so I guess it's, for my only reason is it just hadn't been traditional, but it could be grade of the ramp. Oh, it's around 13%.
No, but I mean, if you had that change, it's gonna change a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like you said, mentioned earlier, the other one was actually.
It's the grade of the one in the South Harbor. What do we have now?
They're about 12 to 13.
That's pretty standard.
Yeah. Which is, yeah. The road going up to the hospital is about that much, not hospital, the elementary school, it's high school or elementary school. This road seems to be an ideal grade to get your trailer in the water and not put your back axle in, so. Yeah.
Big question to me is how do we pay for it? You know, and right now the harbor is an enterprise fund and most of the revenue comes from the stall. People who rent stalls, I pay by the foot for my 42-foot boat, but I don't think I particularly on the hook for a new facility like this. And I imagine most of the harbor users feel the same way. So how do we pay for this? Even if this magically appeared there, who pays to operate it? The annual budget, because you're gonna need some parking enforcement. You're gonna need to have launch permits. Somebody's gonna need to keep an eye on that stuff. And I think that's the biggest question for me today.
Snow removal in the winter.
Bathroom, if there's a bathroom, there probably needs to be a bathroom, but who's gonna keep an eye on that? It all costs money. It's not it's not something you can just tack on to the existing harbor staff workload without price tag. So, do you have any thoughts on that?
I agree with that sentiment. I was kind of looking through the waterfront master plan on page 19. It's the one from 2016. And it says, the master plan must anticipate future costs and state budget shortfalls to ensure long-term viability of the harbor. And then in part C of that, it says creating service areas to develop outlying facilities, for example, Scow Bay, Pappy's Landing, as extended elements of the local waterfront community. These service areas could have their own budgeting and funding that is independent of the harbor department. I don't know if that's ever been pursued or talked about in any concrete way other than just mentioned in the waterfront master plan. But, and I'm not sure what any fleshing out of that might entail. But
Don't we have to look at this as a community project, not a harbor project? I mean, it's the whole community benefits from it. So I think it's a city issue versus, the local harbor. So I mean, to me, it's a good plan. And you just have to find ways to come up with the money. But we're not there yet.
Interesting idea about maybe some of the major users out there would be contributing more to some of those fees for parking. And I keep looking at the parking areas. Does the city, does the borough own any other land out there for long-term storage for people who live out there? They could store their boat trailer away from by the water, but put it up 2 blocks. Does the borough have any land up there?
Through the chair, no, other than the 3 lots you see that Alan.
There's
put
no
on.
other borough land.
Do you have an idea, Dave?
It's been discussed for years how to pay for it, and obviously, you got to figure out a way to pay for it. I don't know the exact number, how much it costs a year, but obviously, people that use the facility, just as you pay to park your boat in town, you have to pay for it. If you want to ramp, if you want to put a boat in the harbor in town, you have to pay for it. If you want to have a parking permit at the harbor, you have to pay for it. So obviously, you're going to have to charge people use permits to make it work. There's the lodges out there. I'm sure they won't want to pay as much as they have to pay, but I think that's an obvious revenue source because they do use it quite extensively. But I think there's a way to pay for all this, the maintenance of it. And that has to be addressed because nobody's going to want to pay more for taxes to pay for it. So there's a lot of technology out there now, a lot's changed. You can be driving down a freeway and they can take a picture of your license plate. And if you're in the wrong lane or the wrong place, they'll send you a bill in the mail. That's in Texas. So I think we could probably figure out how to keep track of who's using the facility out there with the technology that's available now. And it's just a question of finding out what that point is that you need to charge people to use a facility enough to cover your costs. And I defer to Glow on that.
I wonder how much users can bear. It seems like you're all a pretty thrifty bunch out there, and I can picture people scrambling up the beach or getting dropped off at Rocky Point Resort to avoid user fees. if they get too hot.
I've done some thinking, and actually have showed Steve and stuff, and you'd be looking at between 100 and probably 150,000 to, get a person out there part-time every day, have a vehicle, then dealing with all of the other issues, whether it's snow removal and all that kind of stuff. So that would roughly, like, say if it was in the harbor, we would have to up the rates about across the board about 10%. So, and nobody's expecting the harbor payer or harbor users, but if there's somehow that I think the harbor department is probably the ones that have the most experience at this and maybe could contract out 150,000 a year from the general fund. If it's allocated that way, we'd have to look at code to see what kind of jurisdiction we have outside of service area 1, but I think that's all doable as well. But yeah, no, just going in eyes wide open to know that a human being costs the city roughly about $85,000 by the time you pay a person and you have a little bit of a benefit package. So just working back from that, all the other costs that go into just having a presence out there. I think I can justify about 150,000 a year.
Yes, I think there's a bunch of us have been taking care of it out there right now. I snowblowed that thing 5 times this winter to keep it from sinking. So I feel like I should send my bill in the Globe, but I won't. But yes, a lot of people won't like it, but like I've said before, the majority of the users of facilities out there are not necessarily, with the exception of the lodges, and a very small handful of people that actually live remotely out there, which you can probably count in less than 2 hands, are primarily the people from the community that go out there and use that facility. And that's who you're going to have to try and capture the revenue from by charging a launch fee out there, a tie-up fee, a parking fee. And the people that actually live out there, yes, you're right, there's some of them that would probably drive all the way into town to avoid having to pay that fee. But majority of the people that use the facility out there, I think would be, if the fee was not extravagant, I think they would tolerate it.
Kind of one thing about the, charging a fee to launch, sort of one worry that came to my mind is if you create a new launch ramp and it's doing the same thing that the existing launch ramp does, now you want to charge a fee for it. Well, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go over to that one that you don't have to pay, and I'm just going to time it for high tide and go use that one, and then not pay to use the launch ramp that we built. So that there's just kind of a worry there. Do you want to have it, have another one? You're going to be competing between the borough-owned one where you want to try to charge and the Forest Service-owned one where there's not going to be a fee. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. I wanted to just go back a second. Who was it that said, was it Steve? You said that the Forest Service wants to get out of the ramp business? What would that look like? They're already kind of out of it, it looks like to me.
Yeah, what we're hearing is that they no longer have an interest in leasing that facility from DNR.
Oh, they lease from DNR.
So what that would do is would take one more agency out of the mix as far as having to negotiate. So it'd just be DNR and DOT that we'd have to work through this with. So it doesn't give us ownership. It just would free that up to where we could then deal with DNR and potentially get all of that property transferred over if we get our way.
Yeah, so just a couple thoughts that I had. Glo was talking about, a number of $150,000 or $85,000 to have someone be out there year round. Being out there, living out there, using it for the lodge and my house personally and everything. I think one thing you could do to maybe cut back on that is just have someone out there full time during like the busy time. If we have a facility like this, from my personal thought is from basically, I don't know what, October to April, there's no issue out there. There's plenty of parking for everyone, all that kind of stuff. Sure, someone can, make sure the permits are being sold and all that, but it wouldn't have to be a full-time employee. And then as far as like, from the lodge aspect being over there, personally, I don't speak for the other lodges at all, but like, I have no issue paying whatever the boat launch fees are, all that kind of stuff associated with using that, even possibly a yearly fee or whatever it would be to be able to have something like this out here. So I think it would be great, but I'm also not afraid to helping the yearly costs by the fees and all that. You go out there now and there's cars that have 4 flat tires out there just completely full of stuff. And without anybody taking ownership of that property, no one can go in there and be like, okay, this car needs to be towed, you know what I mean? Or this car needs to be out of there. So like half of what's out there now, if we could figure out a way to own the property instead of, was it DOT or whoever owns it that doesn't pay attention to it at all, like that would go a long way too into clearing up the problem out there. But as far as, us using it at Majestic Eagle, we'd be happy to pay the fees or whatever associated with using it out there.
If I may, through the chair,
Okay, Steve?
because I don't want everybody to get tied up on the funding side of this. We talk about that literally all day. Here's some ideas that we've tossed around. So parking permits that you pay an annual fee for, that's fairly easy to regulate. Same with trailers, if we're gonna allow, any of those parking areas to be more longer term, we could have longer term parking rates for that. The transient room tax, which is something that the lodges pay into right now, that money has to be used for purposes to help the people that pay it, meaning hotels, restaurants, or not hotels, bed and breakfasts, and the lodges. So there is a source of fund, not enough, but from the borough's perspective, I think we're talking about cobbling together probably money from different sources and allocating it to something like this if we can get it built. The key is, getting a design to the point where, the assembly feels comfortable telling Alan, okay, let's move the design farther along so that when money comes to build it, we've got a design ready to go. This cannot be the harbor. It cannot be mortgage rates in the harbor. That just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Raising property tax maybe, but we're almost at our cap now. And so I don't know that there's room to, at least at the moment, to do it that way. But as we get the design more finalized and ready to go, we'll get closer and closer to that time. Like, wow, this is looking real. Now we really have to nail down how we're going to pay for it and what those costs are going to be. So again, you guys are asking all the right questions and I absolutely appreciate it. This is a venue and I wanted it coming through the harbor board for this discussion. We're asking PEDC to look at it as well. The assembly will likely offer some kind of public, hearing process for other folks to weigh in and talk about the design. And hopefully we just get a step or two closer to how this thing should look. In the meantime, behind the scenes, staff is working on the DNR DOT issue, trying to figure out how do we get that cleaned up? Because, personally, I don't want to add to the costs by having to lease the property from DNR. That gets just messy and we want to be out from under that. So again, not just stifle conversation on how to pay for it, but we're a long ways away from having to do that. But those are the right questions.
See the big picture. Before I get to Dawn, I'm just gonna ask our assembly members here, what do you want from us? What can we do to move this along? Then I'll get to Dawn. Next phase would be to look at a plan and think of suggestions and changes, send it back to Alan for some rewriting. Would you have money for that? What?
Through the chair, Alan's agreed to one big change to this. So he's not going to want to make a bunch of little changes. I'm speaking for him, so you can cut me off here. So we want to gather all the ideas and then we'll decide which of those ideas go to the plan and then we bring them all back to Alan and say, okay, make these changes. Anything beyond that, he's going to say there's going to be a charge and then the assembly will have to authorize me to spend.
Yeah, we all know a little bit about Pappy's,
I
but we're
figured you did.
definitely not a especially qualified group to even talk about it. Or so like we need to get so many more people in on this. Thanks, so Don.
It's actually kind of right where I was going. I was kind of wondering what you guys wanted from us as far as assembly level goes and the leadership in the borough. I agree. I use Pappy's a lot in the fall. Sometimes 3-4 times a week if the ducks are in, and definitely something needs to get done. I think you guys are just looking for the initial step off, and public input in this venue, I think is probably, and written is probably the next step. I don't know, that's kind of my thoughts behind it. And we know the money aspect of it will come into play. But I think getting this off the ground and moving, so if there happens to be federal dollars that show up and we have the ability to put something in front of them before, say, Wrangle can, we'll get the money before then.
Nervous just because all my mortgage rates are gonna go up.
Yeah.
Just went up.
Let's get that ironed out too. So
Yeah.
Jake, back there. Jake's walking to the mic.
Hi, my name's Jake Slave and I am a employee of the Harbor Department, ready to speak for myself here today. I really like the ideas of having this all in phases. But I don't think any of this is necessary at all. I think that's just an invite for derelict vehicles and trouble and more for, there's gonna be a lot of cleanup there. There's gonna be a lot of derelict vehicles that get dumped there as is. All this is good down here. I like that we could put the ramp in on a separate phase and, but to please the lodge owners and the people south of town here, I agree that we need the ramp and the approach and all that done. As far as paying for it through the Harbor Department, I don't see that happening at all. I think there's enough with the tickets that don't get paid, and there's enough with the launch ramps that gets abused. Like you said, people are just gonna go to the other one too. So I think it's gonna be nil on the payments coming into the Harbor Department. If the city could take over that or lease it to a private entity and the lodge owners and the people that use it constantly can come in and pay that way. Maybe try to get a lease from the city in this lot that's chalked off just for your trailers, just for your equipment, you know, whatever you have to do there, but being that it's in phases, I think that all this up here can go away. And that's it.
One last time around the room, including the people here. Does anybody want to go? Jeff? It's turning into more like a public hearing, but that's fine with me. But
No, it's fine. Jeff Mucci. Yeah, I think what I'd like to see is the Harbor Board say you agree with the concept of this and get this out to the public and start, give the public 2 months or so to kind of, look at this. This can be on the borough website, or it could be posted on the ramps going down to the harbors. It could be posted out of Pappy's or the trees and stuff, and start getting public comment from the community to see what they like about this and what they don't like about this. Jake's got some good points, but we've seen what happened when we turned the parking up at the airport to private industry. I mean, that's all cleaned up and it's all kind of looks better. And I think it needs to be very clear that there's going to be a cost associated with. The borough is not going to pay for this out of our own pocket without some type of increase in something. But I think getting the public to start weighing in on this over the next couple of months or longer, whatever you guys want, would help the assembly so that we can know that this is moving down the line, because several of us are thinking, and I know you guys have all heard this, that this infrastructure bill that is coming into these communities, we want shovel-ready projects ready to go when they ask, here's $8 million, what are you gonna do with it? So I think the sooner that the Harbor Board kicks it out to the community to have, some comments on it and maybe a bigger public hearing in here to have people weigh in. I think that's just part of the process, but that would be helpful for me. So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I agree too. Get the
I haven't heard much from you, Rick. You want to talk about anything? Okay.
Well, I just look at here and, when you talk about the amount of money, I'm just curious if we didn't quite put as much rock here. Cost, because that is a lot of rock. Yeah, I don't know, I mean.
It might be nice to see a menu of options with prices on them.
I have no idea the cost. There's some kind of lots of cheaper ones. Actually, it is obviously the flow.
Okay. Fun, you got anything else, Steve?
Sure.
Okay, well, I guess our advice would be to willing to use the harbor board to talk about this, expand the public input, but not making any commitments to financially attach this to the harbor department. Does that seem like a fair assessment, you guys? What's that?
Making a formal recommendation or something? I'm not quite sure where we should go there.
Well, we're just advisory, so you can, whoever's listening can catch the mood of it. Do we need a motion to put something?
Maybe make a motion to move the project or, give the blessing back to the assembly and see what they want to do. I know Jeff spoke to it, but, maybe the assembly wants to talk about, the different aspects of it too, to kind of get it all going at one.
So then somebody's gonna say so moved, and then Becky's gonna have to wordsmith it. How does that sound?
Well, I'll put a motion. We want the conceptual, we like the idea, but we need more input. And we're gonna send it out to the public.
Maybe advise the assembly to send it to the public.
Yeah.
And they can do it through the harbor board.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Yep.
Everybody in favor of that?
Aye.
Okay, unanimously support that. Good luck, Becky. Okay, well, guess we're moving on then. Communications, somebody say something? Oh, okay, yes, you're right. I'm not aware of any discussion items. I want to add one. We had a tour of Petro last month, maybe it was 2 months ago, and it was just sort of a catch back up on the property and found out that violated the Open Meetings Act. It could be considered an actual meeting that we had. So we're just gonna hold off on advising the assembly on that issue until we can properly notice and do that all over again, if the assembly even wants our input, further input on that issue. So I apologize, that was an oversight, kind of snuck up on us, but it was, we have to notice things like that when we all get together. So, anything else? All right, entertain a motion to adjourn. We're out of here. Thanks, you guys. Thanks for coming. Hey, yeah.